Hey, Marty, welcome to the show.
Good morning. So delightful to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. I have such an esteemed author, and you just came out with a new book. So we wanted to have you on to talk about that.
My pleasure.
So, Marty, tell us
You,
about your new book, the Jefferson Files here.
well, this is actually you played a part in the most recent edition because you added um, a legal side that the earlier editions did not have. It started really quite innocently about now almost 15 years ago. I used to write because I traveled all over the world and it kind of kept me busy and out of trouble. And I would write little short stories or bits and pieces. And when I got home, I would throw it in a big cardboard box in the basement. And when the box filled up, I'd throw it out and start all over again. And there was one time I was sitting on the tarmac at LAX and I was bored. We were there for over an hour and I pulled out the USA Today that I got at my hotel the day before or that morning. And one small story was about um, an operation the FBI did to check out what they heard were dishonest politicians. Imagine that.
Right.
And all I could think of was, my hero has always been Thomas Jefferson. What would he do if somebody said, here's a couple bushel baskets of money? He was always in debt. He always needed money.
Right.
What would he do? He was um, my hero. So I hope he would have thrown the person out the window and the money after it, but he was human. These guys were human. What would he do? And I started writing a short story around what would Thomas Jefferson do.
Hmm.
And that never made it to the garbage can because it just intrigued me. And from maybe 2,000 words an outline when I got home, over the months that followed, it became 20, 30, 40,000 words, which is the beginnings of a book.
Wow.
And I finally finished it and I put it on a shelf. And my daughter took a look at it and she found it by accident. And she said, this is really good. You got to publish it. And I said, nah, nobody wants to read my stuff. I do it for my pleasure. And if you liked it, wonderful. No, and if you know my daughter, you know that she isn't very pushy. Well, she was here. And then my wife joined the crew. This would make a great movie, she said. I was working with a guy at the time who didn't particularly like me, and I didn't particularly like him. But he was an avid reader, and there were always 2 or 3 books in his attaché case. And so I took my name and the title off the manuscript, and I sent it to him with a little note that said, what do you think? And about a week or so later, he called, no hello, no how are you? He opened up with, this thing you sent me, who wrote it? And I said, I did. And he laughed. You could never write anything this good, he said. Just tell me who wrote it. And I said, I did. And he said, I'm really getting annoyed here. I'm going to ask you again. If you give me the same answer, I'm going to hang up on you. Well, he did, I did, and then he did. And I called Amy, my daughter, and I said, come help me. You're an English teacher. Let's edit it. We're going to publish it. That was Thanksgiving to Christmas period, 2014. And by February, March of 2015, we had a book.
Wow.
And my wife and I read about this little Author's Day in Bloomfield, my town, on the town square. And we rented a table for $10 because we now had a box of books.
That's right.
And we sold a lot of books.
Right.
And several months later, it was in its second printing. It's now past its 10th printing, 6 years later. And for the 6th anniversary, I rewrote sections and fortunately brought you in to handle some of the legalese. And this is what wound up the Jefferson Files. It follows a murder, Thomas Jefferson and a secret society, and it takes it through 200 years until finally, in current day, a group of college students learn about the murder,
Mm.
the secret society, and what did he do about it? And that's the book.
That's so tremendous. And we were talking about the 10th printing has already sold out. You were waiting for the new one to come out, and that's just tremendous success from you traveling airports and writing kind of on the side. And it's just I find it so intriguing where you get the inspiration for such a wonderful masterpiece.
I don't know any writer, published writer, who ever really got writer's block.
Hmm.
You write about everything around you, everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever thought. And I usually work on now a couple books at a time. And so if you run dry on one, you just go to the other. But it really is a wonderful second chapter in my life. And I'm enjoying every part of it. I'm enjoying the writing of it and the publishing of it, and then meeting readers and touring around with it. It's wonderful.
So Marty, we talked about earlier that, earlier in your career, you were kind of doubting a little bit about your own writing and publishing books. Do you ever think about maybe you shouldn't have thrown out some of your earlier works and really developed them a little bit further?
The only thing I retained is a manuscript I wrote maybe 20 years ago. And it's a possibility, but I'm not 29. I'm well past that. And there are too many new ideas that I want to do. This book was never meant to be a series. It was meant to be a book. And the mail, and I got plenty of mail based on the fact that not even a secondary character, but all the way in the background, the one who solves the murder, the mystery, was based on a real person who, at the age of 16, was thrown into federal prison for hacking the computer system of the Department of Defense. True story. In fact, back in the 70s, there was a movie with Matthew Broderick.
Oh,
Matthew
yes.
Broderick, The War Games. And that was
Yes,
based on this guy. At any rate, I put a little bit in the back that, I loosely based it on this person. And the mail that came in was phenomenal. This is a self-published book. You don't get mail. I got mail. They want to know more about this guy. And is it real? Is it true? And so that led to the second book in the series. And by that point, I was hooked. And I wanted to know more about him. And so now you contributed to what actually is a 6-book series.
Wow, that's tremendous. So are you thinking about more iterations of this in the future? Are you currently working on a new?
I wrote, last year I came out with a 525-page book about one family: grifters, con men, liars, cheats.
Okay.
And it opens with such a unique love story that holds the family together for 400 years. The family Racusco. And it is now about to go into its second printing.
Wow.
And again, the mail is phenomenal. So I'm kind of moving in a lot of different ways. In between, I wrote a biography of a really great musician from Connecticut who played with Ella Fitzgerald, Sammy Davis, Billie Holiday, which was wonderful to do. And I even did a book of short stories with my daughter, Amy.
Oh,
So I'm writing all kinds of stuff and enjoying it all in different ways. It's a blast. And before the pandemic, I taught writing at UConn in Waterbury as part of their OLLI program to people who should write their stories. It's your legacy. I'm on a mission here to get everybody to write their stories.
So that's another thing I want to talk to you about. I work with a lot of young people who I mentor, and some have started doing some writing. What advice would you give to someone who wants to kind of get into it, but they may be kind of doubting their own self and their skills? And what would you say to them to encourage them to kind of follow their dreams?
In 100 years, when they're gone, they're gone. But if they write their story, no matter how good or professional or grammatically correct, that will live on. And if for nothing else, it's nice for future generations to know that they walked the earth and had a thought or two. And my recommendation is just write. Start wherever you're starting. It's interesting you should say that. One of the places I appear is Katuitt, Massachusetts,
Oh yeah.
on the Cape. And I met a dentist there from England who was retired in Katuitt. And I must have been, I guess the first time was 4 or 5 years ago. And so every year I would be there. And every year he would tell me, I really should write my book. Well, this last year, when I went this past August, he had started.
Oh wow.
And so we're communicating back and forth as to, tell me what you think. And I keep telling him, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you want to write about. And just write. You always can go back and edit. You can hire people to edit. But the important thing is get it out, because otherwise it stays in your head. And if you've got other things in your life, you're going to forget. Write your story. And everyone has an interesting story or more. That's my mission.
Marty, thank you for coming on today. I can't wait to read your book. Like I said, my wife read just the back of it, and the summary got her so excited that she took the book from me, and she's going to read it first. So I'm waiting for her to be done with it. But thank you for the signed copy. I'm just blessed to have known you.
Go to my website and check out my other books. It's
I will. I
martinauthor.com.
absolutely will. I'm so excited about it, but thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.